Aujourd'hui, je veux parler de whether you should count on the granddaddy of welfare programs, that is right, that is what I'm calling Social Security, as part of your FIRE plan, okay? Hey, XenPuck here. Hi there, I'm retired early and I live in the US of A, where we really collectively hate the word and term socialism. Hey, I'm not saying that I agree with that stance, but I think that when most Americans say socialism in public, it's basically used as a dirty word, right? And yet, frankly, we already have a gigantic socialist system in place in the form of Social Security, and nobody who gets that seems to mind at all. The issue, of course, is that only old people get Social Security, right? And you cannot yet start collecting it until at the earliest age of 62. So today's topic is, when us early retirees talk about retirement, should we be taking this gigantic government-funded program into account? My answer is quite easy and quick, and my answer is no, not at all. Okay, ignore entirely. But the fun part is never just in the simple yes or no answer alone, but in the why of it, right? If you don't understand the why, you don't really understand the answer at all. So I'm going to dissect the simple premise down a little bit further because I love talking about FIRE. If you like rants like these or just want to laugh at my uggo mug or whatever floats your boat, comment, like, subscribe, share, and all that social media buzzwords, because I'm rich enough for me and I'll be great regardless. Number one, right off the bat, right? You cannot count on Social Security because it is decades away from any early retiree. I mean, I was inspired by people like Mr. Money Mustache and Pete Bush. They and I retired somewhere in our 30s, right? So how can you depend on money that you won't get for like another 30 years? I mean, sure, I guess it's something nice to know that someday, far, far in the future, the money you already paid into a system will be coming back to you. Maybe. But what's more important to a FIRE adherent is how we can pay for retired life much earlier, right? Nobody's going to worry about actual senior citizen age when they're trying to retire early. The word early is literally part of the FIRE moniker. So I guess my point is, Social Security as a fund will always be something, right? Most regular workers paid into it, so you should expect something. But it's not something that needs to be taken into account because the whole program was designed for workers at an age that cannot physically continue to work at all, right? It's meant to keep seniors from just dying in the streets, okay? So in that sense, it is covering the case that we FIRE adherents would never be caught dead in, right? If you like FIRE and want to FIRE, it immediately implies the type of long-term strategic planning that most people lack. So in a philosophical sense alone, no, you won't need to count on Social Security, right? But point number two, practically speaking, right? The earlier you retire, by the way, the lower the amount of Social Security you'd get anyway, right? Social Security is currently calculated as an average of the highest 35 years of your earnings, okay? Note also that Social Security earnings are capped, I think around like 130, 140, something like in the mid 100 Gs, right? So it's not like you can have some amazing years dragging up your average significantly, right? For my personal example, by the way, I can tell you I stopped having a regular job with an earned income after only 16 years. So my Social Security average will be, well, quite sad because there'll be 19 years of zeros to average out my 16 years of earnings. And even out of my 16 years of earning, probably only in half of those did I hit the max income as considered by Social Security, right? I made more money, but Social Security thinks I topped out at like 150 or whatever the max was that year. So what it boils down to is this, right? If you retire earlier than having 35 years of a regular job where you contributed to Social Security, your payout will not be great or maximal, okay? Or optimal, however you want to think about it. In fact, Social Security itself won't be able to give you a good estimate even, because the last time I checked, it keeps assuming I'd keep having a regular job like when I last had a regular job. Do you guys see how absurd it is? Our government system, right, the Social Security part of the government, cannot conceive that any citizen might not actually want to care about Social Security enough to just stop being a regular drone, okay? So my suggestion is that since we can't get a realistic estimate if we plan on only working for a fraction of the expected 40 to 50 year career, let's just assume low to mid-level Social Security payout, right? When the time comes, when we, the FIRE people, get to be seniors, right? And that's pretty easy to find out. Okay, you can look it up on the internet. The average is $2,300 if you take Social Security at the earliest age of 62, right? So if I want to be conservative, and I think it's going to be less because we're missing a bunch of years, let's just assume somewhere around $1,500 to $2,000. So it serves its original purpose of basically preventing a person from being like completely destitute, I guess. But I would not call something like $1,500 a living wage whatsoever. Okay. On that point, number 3, right? Finally, let's face it, okay, Social Security as a system of social welfare as opposed to an investment vehicle, because that's what it is. It's social welfare, so it's limited on how it can invest, and that is why the pool of money that funds Social Security is not doing well, right? People do cry wolf about how Social Security will be gone entirely. I've done a whole video talking about that subject alone. It's on my channel somewhere. Just look for the word Social Security. The TLDR on that is no, actually. Social Security would never ever die so long as there are still working Americans. There will always be, even if, let's say, 90% of all jobs become automated in the next 20 years, in which case company will simply be forced to pay some sort of automation tax, right? That's already been in the proposals now, okay, when automation is not really around yet, right? So as long as there are Americans who can voice their voices with voting, there will be Social Security. The problem isn't that about its continued existence, but with the fund's actual amount, right? They won't cut it all, but they might cut it some. So recall what I just said. Hey, for us early retirees, expect on the lower end of Social Security payout, right? Because we're gonna have a bunch of $0 years in terms of how Social Security counts income, right? So add on top of that some very likely future cuts, and things look even more bleak, right? So my previous point, I said we might get something like as low as $1,500 a month, right? Which is nice to have, but not as sustainable as a living wage. If Social Security gets cut at all, it might go down to like $1,000 a month. At this level, I'm not even sure any seniors can like afford living alone, right? Do seniors want to bunk up with their best friends and hope neither of them croaks? I mean, my point is, not only is Social Security unreliable as a source of income, its best days are most likely already behind us, right? No one I know who has ever gotten Social Security now thinks that they're getting paid a lot of money, okay? Yeah, so not a good look. In conclusion, I know Social Security will always be around, if solely because it's politically dangerous to have it any other way. And yet, for anyone who's remotely trying to, not be a worker bee their entire adult lives, it's not something anyone should think about or depend on. I mean, unless $1,000 a month sounds like a lot of money to you. I sure hope not, though. If you want to get to FIRE, get to that 25x to 33x of annual spending as your net worth, hopefully $1,000 a month will soon seem as insignificant to you as it does to me, right? $1,000 a month, it's not nothing, right? It's like lunch money, though, it's still nice to have, but you simply cannot live on that outside of some extremely tiny survivalist type of living situations. As an early retiree, I don't want to live like that, right? I want to feel and be flush while not being forced to work, right? I'm already there, so I know it can be done. You can do it too, right? Just don't rely on Social Security to carry the load. That wasn't its design to begin with, all right? Cheers. I'll approach it.